Hello, I am Scott Yannick, and today we're going to be learning a little bit of New Testament Greek. Specifically today, I want to look at pronunciations, and I've broken down the pronunciation into a couple different categories. First, we have what I'm calling letters with an unexpected but familiar sound, and what I mean by that is if you look at the letter, you probably wouldn't think it'll make the sound that it does, but it should be a sound that you're familiar with and able to make just from speaking English. And the next category is the same thing essentially, except that the sound the letter makes will be a bit tougher, not really something we have in English. And then we'll move on to diphthongs, which will be combinations of two vowels that make one sound together. And then we have, for practice, some simpler, easy words, and then we'll move on to slightly harder words that use some of the unfamiliar sounds and diphthongs and stuff like that. So, here's our first category. First, we have the letter vita. I know it looks like a B, and in English we call it a beta, but it is a vita, and it makes a V sound. Here my example is like in the word very. Next we have delta. Again, delta, not delta. It does look pretty much like a D in the lowercase. I know it's, a bit more curly, but it is what it is. And again, this does not make a D sound. This is like the TH in the word then or the. Next we have this group of three letters, ita, iota, and ypsilon, and when they're standing by themselves, they all make the same sound, which is an E, like in eat or the I in machine. So, three different letters, all making the same sound when they're by themselves. Next is xi. And this letter I include because the letter he looks like an X, but this is the letter that actually sounds like an X. So xi, and it'll make an X like in fox. Okay, here's our second category with some tougher letters. The first one we have is a gamma, and this is tough because it's usually not going to be quite like a normal G, a G, like in the word go. And most of the time it's also not going to be quite like a Y, like in the word yellow. It can sort of, the pronunciation of this letter can sort of slide between those two sounds. And depending on the word, it will go all the way to a regular English G or all the way to a Y, or it'll sit somewhere in between, like the sound I'm trying to demonstrate when I say gamma. And the letter I mentioned earlier, a he, it's I don't know the proper linguistic terms to explain this sound, but it's he. And the example I give here is an H like in Hanukkah, which is actually slightly different, but it's still sort of an aspirated consonant, like that you make most of the sound just by breathing out. Yeah, it might be a tough one to get used to, but it's not that bad. Okay, diphthongs, combinations of letters. First we have alpha plus iota, and this is an A sound like in make. So again, alpha iota, A. Alpha epsilon will make sort of an af or an av, which are very close. It'll just sort of depend on the word or depending on your own pronunciation. But yeah, again, alpha plus epsilon, av. epsilon plus iota is an E, another combination that makes an E sound, like in eat or the I in machine. Again, epsilon plus iota, E. Epsilon plus epsilon is a lot like alpha plus epsilon, where it's like an F or an EV. One example of this that I learned recently is in a person's name, Greek prime minister like 100 years ago, Eleftherios Venizelos. That Elef is actually, there is no phi in there. There is no vita in there. It's this combination of letters, this epsilon, epsilon. Next is omicron iota, and this again is something that makes an E sound, like in eat or the I in machine. So again, omicron plus iota, E. Okay, so let's get on to our practice. First, we have this word, which means human, and once you hear me say it, you will probably recognize some words in English from it, such as anthropology. We have alpha, ni, theta, rho, omega, pi, omicron, sigma. And that makes anthropos. Again, anthropos. Now I'll say it one more time, and you can try to repeat after me. Anthropos. And again, last time, anthropos. Now, on to the next one. This one, nice and short, and I'll let you try and do this one before I even say it. It's just 3 letters. Pi, alpha, sigma. And it means all / every, depending on singular or plural, or it can mean the entire. It's just a slightly different usage of the word. And it's pas. Again, pas. And I'll say it again, and you can try to pronounce it again. Pas. And one last time. Pas. And if you ever see a word that starts with pan, maybe, like this is an obscure reference, and I don't know why this is the example of a word that comes to mind for me, but the French philosopher Michel Foucault, using the word panopticon, essentially like eyes everywhere. That pan at the beginning is this word. It's just this is the masculine form I'm showing you, and that's the neuter form if you use a ni. Okay. Here are some of the harder words. Okay. Pi, omicron, iota, epsilon, omega. And this is a verb, and it means I do or I make. Now, we saw the omicron, iota diphthong a little bit earlier. So hopefully you'll be able to recognize that this is pieo, not poieo, but pieo. And I'll say it again for you, and you can try to pronounce it out loud after me. Pieo. And again, pieo. Okay, next word. Here we have lambda, epsilon, gamma, omega. And this is like I say or I speak, or it can sometimes mean like I mean. That's sort of an idea. And this is Lego. That's that sort of tough gamma sound that I was telling you about. Lego. And I'll say it again and you can try it. Lego. And one more time. Lego. And this word, which means I come or I go, we have epsilon, rho, chi, omicron, mi, alpha, iota. And it's erchome. Again, erchome. And after this time, you can try it yourself. Erchome. And again, I'll do it a little bit slower. Erchome. And on to our final word. It is Christ. We have chi, rho, iota, sigma, taf, omicron, sigma. And it is Christos. Again, Christos. And I'll go a little bit faster and you can try it yourself. Christos. And again, Christos. And that's all I have for you today. Good job completing those pronunciation exercises with me, and I hope you enjoyed.